Are you grieving? You're going through infertility and loss. It can feel like you've lost something, like you're mourning. But even if you haven't experienced pregnancy loss, infertility can feel like a loss every month. The loss of a dream, the loss of hope, the loss of the child that you thought you would have by now. Then when you add in pregnancy loss, baby loss, it's so hard, and we are dealing with grief. But it's a very private grief. It's a grief that isn't really discussed openly. 1 in 4 pregnancies ends in miscarriage. But because generally people don't share that they're pregnant until they hit that 12-week mark, because 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage, a lot of the time our grief can go not just unrecognized, but there's no space for us to share that grief, to talk about that grief. I thought now was a prudent time to discuss grief with the Queen's funeral in the UK tomorrow. And the whole country, whether or not they are celebrating the Queen's life, whether or not they are, a fan of the royal family, cannot help but be touched by this experience. In fact, the very fact that there's a bank holiday tomorrow, so everything is going to be closed. And so even if you don't feel connected to the royal family in some way, you will be touched by the Queen's death. And so this is very public grief. The news, social media is full of it, and it's a very kind of acceptable grief that a lot of people are feeling very, very touched, and very some people even very surprised by the depth of their grief at the passing of the Queen. And a really interesting point that it can be triggering in us of a grief that maybe hasn't had a space to come out. And so then having that space to just grieve. When I was going through infertility myself, and this was before I'd ever got pregnant, so this was before I had the miscarriage, I'd never actually experienced a loss. And my friend, was really struggling, really depressed, and she was like, it sounds like you're grieving. And I was like, well, grieving what? Like, I haven't lost a baby. And she was like, but you have, in a way you have, because each month you're imagining that you could be pregnant, and you're hoping that you're pregnant. And for those 2 weeks, you're living as if you are. You're not doing all the things that you're not supposed to be doing while you're pregnant. You're living in hope. And then when the beginning of your cycle comes and you have your period and you're not pregnant, it is a sense of loss, a sense of grief. And so I started looking at this and talking about it with my clients. And the 5 stages of grief, the Kübler-Ross, say it right, 5 stages of grief is really good. It starts off with denial, that you are completely, and this is so what I went through, so I'm just completely in denial, like I do not have infertility, I don't need to do IVF, I was going to get pregnant naturally straight away, it's all going to be fine. Complete denial for a few months. Then it was the anger, I can't, why is this happening? I don't understand, why is this happening to me? Just intense rage, intense anger. And the anger I felt was so huge, was so all-encompassing, so difficult to deal with. Then comes bargaining, and you are just like, please let me get pregnant. I will do whatever it takes. And bargaining can also express itself in all the things you're doing to try and get pregnant. So having a really strict diet, having, a supplement regime that makes your cupboard look like Holland and Barrett's. It's the, doing all the things because you feel like if you do, then you'll get pregnant. Then it will pay off. And then comes depression. When you've tried everything and it just feels absolutely hopeless. And then you're just like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted. And I hit that point while we were going through our first round of fertility treatment. And I was just like, awful, absolutely awful. But then for me, learning about the mind-body link, learning about just accepting the fact that this was like a big, huge, life-altering thing that I was going through, helped me come to this place of acceptance, the 5th step in this cycle of grief. And it's not about like accepting infertility, just be, all right, we won't have any kids then. But it's, instead of fighting infertility every step of the way, it's about embracing your fertility and accepting that this is really hard, accepting that, you know, you may need to do things in a different way, accepting that you may need to find out what's going on with your body, with your health, with your mind, and looking for ways to support yourself and look after yourself so that you can be as fertile as possible and hold that baby in your arms as quickly as possible. And so it was so interesting when I've been sort of thinking about over the last couple of weeks, like, okay, coming up to the funeral around the country, you know, in some businesses and families and people have been observing that 10 days of mourning, that space and time, businesses closed, people wearing black, people looking inward and reflecting on their experiences with the Queen. And so on social media, they're pretty much, you know, everyone who's ever come in contact with the Queen has shared the story, has shared, you know, their experience of meeting her. Mine, I just share mine while we're on it. Mine wasn't that positive, really. I was a brownie, and she was apparently driving past to go from, you know, A to B, wherever she was going. And so our whole brownie, what do you call it, brownie set, went, and we stood on the edge of this A road in the pouring rain. It was absolutely freezing, and we all had our flags. We stood there for hours, and then the car went past, and it's not like she stopped or slowed down or anything. It was just, the car went past, and then we went home. And I remember thinking at the time, I was just like, I don't really get it, because obviously, you know, I was a kid. I was just like, if we're going to meet the Queen, I thought someone said we were meeting the Queen, and they were like, no, she's just driving past. Anyway, so yeah, but still, my sort of connection with this time is more with my gran. That my gran's in a care home. She has Alzheimer's. Doesn't really remember who I am anymore. So I'm going to visit her on Tuesday this week. And yeah, she's always loved the Queen, so I'm going to take her, you know, some magazines and sort of commemorative, you know, pictures and things to talk to her about, because she's always loved the Queen, but in a very much like, oh, that poor woman, she should be retired, and she's jet-setting across the world, shaking hands with every Tom, Dick and Harry. Love it. So yes, I'm going to talk to my gran about it. But yes, circling back round to grief. So there's been this very, very public grieving, this very, very, and you know, if people wanted to, they could, you know, go. So we went to Windsor Castle, and we took flowers, and we took the kids, and it was kind of this like mark of respect of, you know, she has been her queen, and whatever you feel about the royal family or the royals, it still felt like. Sign it. We were going to Legoland, which is in Windsor. So I thought we'll just pop by. The castle. But it felt like this kind of key moment, and it was that just to sort of take that moment that our life has ended, and yeah, no matter what you think of the royals and the royal family, like her life has ended, and this is an end of an era for, you know, the majority of people living in this country have been under the Queen Elizabeth reign. And then when it comes to infertility, it's such especially if we haven't shared with friends and family that we're trying to conceive, we literally have no space for grief generally. And when we do share with people, it's very exciting, isn't it? People are like, oh, you're going to have a baby and this is all amazing. And you can be like, well, nothing's happening. And a lot of times someone hasn't been through infertility, they can't understand that. They can't get their head around the grief of it, that it is petrifying, that you don't know if you're ever going to become a parent. So this is an invitation for you to spend some time this week. If you can't tomorrow in the UK, get a bank holiday, perfect time, take a little bit of time out for yourself. But if not, just some other time this week to really sit and do a journaling exercise and just start at the top of the page. What am I grieving? What am I grieving? And then I want you just to do conscious writing, just allow the words to flow until there's nothing left to say. And I imagine you are going to fill quite a few pages with grieving the loss of time, maybe the loss of babies, maybe the loss of finances, loss of relationships maybe along the way, maybe a loss of innocence in your relationship with your partner, maybe a loss of, could even be like a loss of ovaries, loss of topic, fallopian tubes if you've had an ectopic. There's so much loss and there's so much grief in infertility, and just spend some time this week journaling about that. And then I'd like you to just write. It's very, very powerful. But then if you'd like to take it that step further, then do the EFT tapping while reading what you've written out loud. So there's a tutorial video on EFT on my website. Put a link to it below as well, my YouTube channel. And just tap around the points. You don't need to do all of the language, but just tap around the points while reading that letter out loud to have that energetic release alongside. And let the tears flow. Let the anger out. Let all of it just come out to the surface. So it's a beautiful phrase. When we name our emotions, we tame them, we can see them, we can understand what they are, and then we feel them to heal them. So we name them to tame them, and we feel them to heal them. When we are hiding everything inside and not even admitting to ourselves that we're feeling grief, everything gets locked inside. So allow everything to come out. Hope this has been helpful. Do let me know. So do subscribe so you'll get updates of when the next episode comes out. And if you've not yet joined my mailing list, please do so. I share so many useful things when you sign up to my mailing list. First chapter of my upcoming book, talking about the link between stress and infertility. There's meditations, there's the tapping video, there's so many amazing resources. Go and check them out, and you can do that at embracefertility.co.uk.